Welcome to another edition of Interruptions. I'm your host, Otis Smith. Today we got another treat for you guys. We're going to do talking about the Super Bowl of 2023 against the Eagles against the Kansas City Chiefs. This is part two. Today we have a Heisman Trophy former NBA player, Mr. Charlie Ward. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Otis. Thanks for having me, and
Yeah,
look forward to chatting with you.
yeah.
Even
I
though I
wanted.
didn't play in the Super Bowl or the NFL, but
That's okay.
I
Yeah,
appreciate
but
you having me on.
that's why I wanted to have because people forget, we equate you with playing in the NBA, and when we talk about football, we remember you playing at Florida State, but you still, just like you could discuss the NBA, you can discuss the NFL. I mean, you played the game. It's not like you didn't play.
Right,
So
right. No,
my
I
first
appreciate you having me.
oh, and I like the shirt. Everybody pay attention to the shirt. Yes, sir. So, my first question for you is, what did you think about the 2022 season? What was the season like for you? What did you glean for this past NFL season?
Well, I mean, there were a few clear-cut uh, favorites from the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. One was the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
They I mean, they were undefeated for quite some time, and they lost a few games late um, to get them to where they are today. So I'm happy to see that they made it because they were one of the better teams and they were definitely well balanced. And of course, the Kansas City Chiefs, whenever you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
and just how smart he is and how he uses his legs when he needs to, how he's able to, I like the way they just, it seems like they're making it up on the fly, like like
Yeah.
Sandlot. But I know it's all well orchestrated. That means they put a lot of time together. He and Kelsey,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean they're always on the same page for the most part. And so those were two teams. And overall, you had your storylines. Your Tom Brady
Right.
coming back out of retirement, and his team didn't play as well. He didn't play as well as we've seen him play in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Rodgers, with all the drama at the beginning of the year,
Mm-hmm.
with him being traded or not traded, and his team was mediocre throughout. And then you know the reigning champs didn't have a season. The Rams, they were they were
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah. They was banged up.
Yeah, so when you lose Aaron Donald early in the season, that definitely kills you. But overall, you think about the Buffalo Bills, how they beat the Chiefs early,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like supposed to be the favorites, and lo and behold, here come the Bengals, the Cincinnati Bengals out of
Again.
nowhere,
Again.
to again. I was picking them to go to the Super Bowl, but because of their DNA from last year. They were kind of holding it down pretty much the same way. They kind
Yeah.
of
Actually. Yeah.
snuck in that mix over the
Mm-hmm.
course of time. So, and Joe Burrow's a national champion. He's a Heisman winner, and so his DNA when it comes to playing the game
Mm-hmm.
is very good as well. So I see them being a form of opponent, uh, fold to get to the Super Bowl again within the next 2 years.
When you look back before we get into this game, I had two side questions for you, but do you, when you see a Jalen Hurts, when you see a Patrick Mahomes and some of these guys, it's not that everyone has had the same skill set that you had, but do you kind of look at yourself sometimes in the career that you had in college and say you're kind of they're kind of also a byproduct of what you were able to accomplish at Florida State? Because you had the athleticism, but you also was a passer as well. It wasn't like you was running the option or anything, but you could run if you had to, but you were also a passer running a pro style offense as well.
Yes, quite a few of the guys in this day and age are very similar to my style of play when I was in college. And a lot of people think I was a runner. I wasn't a runner. I was a
No,
passer. And I use my legs to do what Patrick Mahomes does: get first downs, get out of the way of people, escape to be able to throw the football. And so, I can relate more with Patrick Mahomes than I can Jalen Hurts. Jalen is more of a runner
right.
who's developed into a very good passer
Passer.
over his career. And I just think, you look at Mahomes and he just has what most people who have great talent, they just have that it factor. Like,
Yeah,
you know, he finds a way to, regardless of who he's playing with, he finds a way to make everybody better. Of
but
course, you need protection and those types of things from the offensive lineman, and you need a run game, which I think they got uh, two good backs, serviceable backs that could, help in the run game. But I mean, this man be throwing dimes, running one way, and he just knows where to go with the football and how to play the game. I mean, man played on a hurt ankle.
I was going to ask you about that because we talked about it last night. I had on last night Doc Walker from Washington, OJ Anderson from the Giants, and Dexter Carter from your alma
Hmm.
mater. And
Right.
we talked about that game, and I remember you playing like the Floridas and the Miami Hurricanes. Were you surprised that Cincinnati didn't try to put more pressure on him coming from the right side, because forcing him to his left, because it seemed that that's where he was struggling as far as running if he had to go to his left? Were you surprised that they didn't? Because when you played, if you'd have been limping around against Miami or Florida, they were coming.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they would have taken probably a couple of penalties, um, just just because it's 15 yards. But their main mission and goal was to probably try to get the player out of the game. But
Right.
that's just the old school mentality,
Sure.
as you know. It's
Hmm.
totally different today. You're not just trying to hurt people, but
Right.
I mean, if you can make them hobble even more, that's what you're working to do. But even still, I think they did do a good job of trying to get pressure on him.
Hmm.
But he was savvy enough to be able to, get out of the way
Hmm.
or throw the football away. And then, he took some 1 yard gains, even though, they were tackling him, but he took some 1 yard gains.
Yeah.
He actually took a couple sacks, just not putting the ball in harm's way because of his mobility. And so that just goes to show you, how smart he is.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he was throwing touchdowns off one leg.
Yeah. That
You know
one he
that touchdown,
threw. Oh, that threw the one he threw when he was.
and the touchdown, to, I think it was to number 11,
Yeah, number 11. Yeah.
Scanlon on that dig route or
That,
what, a slant route or something. Um, I mean, just that was off one leg, and so he hit him with that dime. But just to see how great the man was, that's the reason why I chose. I picked the Bengals to win because I was like, man, there's no way he can play on a high ankle sprain and be throwing, and get out of the way.
I thought the
Well,
same.
whatever.
I thought the same thing. Especially when you talk about a high ankle sprain, that's basically almost saying the ankle's almost broke. It's
Correct.
it's not like it's when you twist your ankle. Like no,
Correct.
this is like almost it's broke. It's almost broke. So you're correct on that, and I give him much props for you with this game coming up, the Super Bowl, the big one, what would you say are the Eagles' strengths, and what would you say would be the Kansas City strengths going into this game?
Well, the Eagles, I think they're the most balanced team.
Mm-hmm.
Between the run game, the pass game, um, and their defense.
Mm-hmm.
Their defense is solid. They don't have any weaknesses. And one of the things uh, that we're going to have to see from Philadelphia is Jalen Hurts being able to push the football down the field.
Okay.
Didn't see much of that in the championship game. Uh, he hit, I guess, a couple of passes down the field, but he didn't throw it deep
Right.
a lot. You don't have to throw it a lot, but enough to be able to keep the defense honest. But he's capable of doing that. He's
Okay.
been able to do it all season. But I think their strength is having a balanced offense because they can run it and they can pass it as well because they have some dynamic receivers,
Mm-hmm.
very good tight end. So there's no one person you can focus on. You're like, we're going to take AJ Brown. Well, I mean, they got everybody. That opens up for uh, Smith and and Goddard. I think is the
Got her.
tight
Yeah,
end, and
the
so
tight end.
they just keep bringing more guys that's serviceable to be able to be there. And I think with Kansas City, of course,
Mm-hmm.
their strength is having Patrick Mahomes and the weapons.
That's a good
Scanlon,
strength.
yeah, he provided a second option for him. Kelsey is going to be there, and I'm always amazed at how these guys just stay open. Like you know you they're going to get the ball, but they stay open. I'm like,
Well,
how do they stay open?
we talked about that last night. One of the things, like I know OJ Anderson was saying, he didn't understand because you played in that same era, especially you being a quarterback. He said, use an example, it's 3rd and 7, right? And you just gonna play 5 yards off the ball. Like, what is it? What is that? Like, why are you 5 yards the corners? Why it's 3rd and 7? Why are you 5 yards? You giving him basically the first down, and he made a statement, and let me get your thoughts on it. He said sometimes he feels like the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, are so trying to interview for a job far as through the plays that they call, right? That sometimes it looks like when you and I are watching that they're not putting the players in the best position to win that particular game.
Well, I don't know about that may happen like other places, but
Mm-hmm.
I know what you're starting to see now in the
Okay.
playoffs, which is definitely magnified even more because of
Sure.
possessions.
Uh-huh.
You start to see the coordinators, offense and defense coordinators, playing great strategy,
Mm-hmm.
depending upon strengths. And I just like it. Let's just use Travis Kelsey,
Okay.
for example.
Okay.
So the other night, it was like third and I want to say 7, maybe 3rd and 7.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he just ran a simple route, and the simple route was he ran down. There was a defender on the outside. He ran at that defender, and there was a defender on the inside. He ran, and he just made a spin move right
Yeah.
in between both of them, and Mahomes hit him. And see, that's the kind of stuff that I like.
Okay.
You understand down and distance,
Uh-huh.
even though he was guarded by two guys,
Mm-hmm.
he knew how to get open and the delivery was there. And so you start to see, I think this happens during the season as well, but
Mm-hmm.
you really see it in the playoffs where my coach used to call it a him route.
Okay.
Like you're going to throw it to him, whether he
Gotcha.
open or not, in certain situations. And you're dependent on your receiver
Hmm.
to get open. Like you can look off and do all necessary things, but you're depending on your receiver to get open, and you know who those guys are, who's going to get open, and so you know when to deliver it because you've gone over this time and time
Sure.
again, timing wise.
Okay.
But you know who's going to get open, and so that's why I'm always amazed at how these guys stay open. Um, Adams from he's at the Raiders now, but when he was in Green Bay,
Devontae. Right.
Devontae Adams, the man stayed open all the time. And I'm like, how's he open? But they know how to set it up, and he and Rogers are on the same page, and they throwing it into windows. You know, guys, he's come through the middle in the window. He's just throwing it in there, and he's open. And so they know what's coming, and they make it happen. So I'd be interested to see how um, Philly can get their weapons the ball. AJ Brown is a good one. Devontae Smith is another great weapon. Goddard is another great weapon. And then they have other guys that's been serviceable, but their run game has been really, really off the
Right.
chain. They haven't. They've used Jalen Hurts as a secondary to be
Hmm.
able to get that run game going. So, of course, coaching plays a big part. They have great. Both teams have great coaching. That's the
Correct.
reason why they're in the championship game. And so it'll be interesting to see who can make the adjustments necessary because at this point, everybody knows what's going on. You may throw a wrinkle in here and there because you have 2 weeks,
Right.
and you have professionals, and you have to adjust on the fly at some point. But when it's all said and done, you know who's going to execute down the stretch of this game to be able to get the win.
That's what I was about to say. That the execution. What are your thoughts on when you're how would you attack like Philly? So when you're Kansas City and you're trying to attack Philly's defense, and you look at they have two good cover corners on the outside, and you have a situation like you said, you have the great equalizer in Kelsey, right?
Right.
So, do you try to establish Kelsey earlier, or is it still because, like you said, sometimes you just throw a him route to throwing him that guy open, or do you try to? Because I'm sure by the time they play the game, the receivers that they didn't have for the championship game will be able to play. Or do you just try to get everybody involved for this big game?
Well, I mean, you know, you always want to get guys involved
Hmm.
because you know that Travis Kelsey is going to demand, attention, and so most times they don't force feed him. The good thing about it is they'll throw him a little short route. They mix it up where they'll throw him a screen at the line of scrimmage to get the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
They'll throw him a hitch or a quick screen of some form just to get the ball in his hands, and that will draw whatever attention. And then not that's not what you always start with,
Right.
but eventually you get to that. But you normally, you look at the defense to see who's your best matchup, whether it's the running back on the linebacker, whether it's getting one of your receivers in motion on the linebacker in some form of fashion. And so you start to see a lot of the game planning on, you know, I always look at it, the NFL is very similar to basketball in a
Hmm.
lot of ways, the NBA, and
Hmm.
how they scheme to get the matchups that they
Okay.
want.
Okay.
And so, you go five wide just to get the matchup you want. You put the right guy in the right position against whomever. And so the defense has to match up to that, trying to put a linebacker on the running back. You see them that's the way they match up most times.
Right.
And if you have a good running back that can run routes, you see them, everybody clear out. That running back is running an in route
Hmm.
or a hitch route, depending upon, the case. And that's the way you get your matchup. So, but with Mahomes, I mean, everything's good.
But and you saying that because you got a guy that just knows where to go with the ball. Like
Yes.
you're not worried about he's just going to put it in harm's way just for the like you said and you're right when you think about it, he really never force feeds Kelsey. It just seems
No.
like when he goes to Kelsey, he's open.
He,
It's not a situation where like it just took a great throw for Kelsey to catch it because he really wasn't open. It's no, he's open. Like and you're right. I wonder, but like, why is he? You know, this
man.
is this is his guy. This is his security blanket, and it's like, why is he open?
So let me tell you,
Okay,
for example,
okay,
in the red zone the other night
hmm
for the game-winning touchdown, I think it was, um, Kelsey was supposed to run a flag route, a 7 route
okay,
over the top,
uh-huh,
where the DB who was guarding him was on the outside. So what did Mahomes and Kelsey do? Instead of him just running the route and saying I'm covered,
right,
they ran a hook back to the inside. He threw him a back shoulder back to the inside, and by the time the DB could get there to try to knock it down, he had caught the ball and he was just trying to punch it out at the end. That's what I mean by when it's hard. Those guys are hard to guard because it may look like he's covered, but with the right throw and them being on the same page, it makes it impossible to guard. And so I'm always asking, like some of the coaches, some football
okay,
coaches that I know,
uh-huh,
I'm like, why is this guy running a flag route into a cover three?
hmm
Why don't he just turn around and sit in the hole?
sit in the hole, right,
Or why don't they just change his route if there's nobody in that zone? And so that is what I admire most about watching the Kansas City Chiefs is they find ways to throw guys open or get guys open, just by them understanding one another. And Philadelphia is a little different.
hmm
They do have some different routes, but most of their routes are built into, um, what's going to actually happen as opposed to a read. So, for instance, if I do have a flag route,
okay,
but I'm going to call a flag and go.
hmm
All right, what we used to call a cargo. So they already know it's already built in. They're just going to run it and then over the top to put a strain on, the corner,
hmm
especially if the corner is supposed to pick up that flag route, and you got somebody taking out the safety. And so those are examples of the difference.
because that's what's supposed to happen. That's
Correct.
so it's a read based on I know where everybody's going. I'm talking about far as from Jalen Hurts' point of view. I know where
Correct.
everybody else. I know where everybody's supposed to be going. So I'm throwing with anticipation that this has happened. So this is where I'm going with the ball. Whereas Mahomes and Kelsey will say this is supposed to happen, but those two have a relationship. If this does not happen, then
Correct.
you know the adjustment route. And so
Correct.
then it's hard for a defender to defend because at this point now, you don't know where Kelsey is going. Because now
Correct.
this is like you said, kind of playground, but for them, they've rehearsed this. So even though uh it's a scramble play, to them, it's almost like a secondary route where Mahomes can still throw with anticipation in a window that he knows Kelsey is going to because the first read on that route is gone.
Correct. But the thing that you can't overlook, I'll say
Uh-huh.
this, is the Philadelphia defense. They're
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
So with the pass rush, that they have, and then the cover guys on the back end, it makes the quarterback have to make quicker decisions. Even though Joe Burrow was, I mean, he had him right there to win the game. He still was a little bit under duress.
Yeah.
And of course, he's mobile. I'm not sure how mobile Mahomes would be, but it's just be interesting to see how they'll win some. They're going to get their wins because they're very good. Defensively, they're very
Mm-hmm.
good. Uh, it'll be who can get, of course, like any game, who can get the turnovers,
The turnovers.
which defense can get the turnovers. Um, and, you know, three and outs, of course, aren't going to be a big thing in this one because both teams' offense is,
Okay.
pretty good. You just hope that you can get a couple. That's a win if you can get a couple
Couple
three and outs
stops.
at the right time. Yeah, and so it just be interesting to see how both defenses, because Kansas City's defense is always, I don't know what to say about their defense, but they seem to get stops when they need them.
Yeah.
Um, Jamar Chase was and T Higgins were were big boys
Mm-hmm.
on a couple of throws that they had and catches that they made.
Right.
So it'll just be interesting to see if they can get the stops needed, Kansas City, uh,
I was going to ask you.
because
I was going to ask you about that. Far as with Jones, the D lineman. Yeah.
Christian Jones.
Do based on the offense that the Eagles run, do you block him or do you make him
Hmm.
have to read? Because I think that's one of the frustrating, and let me know if I'm wrong. I think that's one of the frustrating things about that offense is that the ends or the tackles, even sometimes they just can't come crashing like they want. They can't just because now the quarterback is reading off of you. So it
Yeah.
is
Someone
is
did a breakdown.
mm-hmm.
Someone did a breakdown the other day
Okay.
on the Eagles offense, and it was very interesting.
Okay.
Simple, but very interesting. Away from the back, they had two plays. One was a run and one was a pass.
Okay.
Away from the back, if they had 3-on-2, if they had a three-man side,
Okay.
they were going to run the football to the three-man side.
Ooh.
Um, that means you had a defensive end, either a three technique or one technique,
Right.
and one linebacker
Uh-huh.
to the
To,
weak side, and they were going to run it. So they had a couple of runs. It wasn't the same run, but they
mm-hmm.
had a couple of runs with different blocking schemes. It might have been the same looking run, but they had different blocking schemes where they blocked down and pulled a
Cool.
center out to block that backer, and they went one on one with the end with the tackle, or they just zoned it where they zone, double team the one technique
I was about to say double
to the
team. Yeah.
backer and just cut off the strong side with whatever they had going on or with the quarterback. And so they ran those two plays, and it was just a box read. It made it simple, and then off of that they could throw something quick to the strong side or the quarterback run, one of the two. And so that was I was very interested to see. I just like seeing those breakdowns like that
I
because it made it simple to be able to understand like how they getting these gash and holes on these touchdown runs that they got against Cincinnati. So of course, what we see is what
mm-hmm.
people are scouting now, and so now the adjustment is how can we get those numbers in our favor and make plays from there.
the best
Now that people
team
know.
the best team I saw defend that type of offense that they run was back in 2012. And ironically, it was the Cincinnati Bengals when they played
Mm,
Washington when RG3 ran it. And what they did was they committed from the backside because he's right-handed. So what they did was they committed a linebacker or kind of like a corner blitz. They will always send someone at the quarterback. So what they forced RG3 to do is instead of pulling it, trying to read and pull, because as you know, you played the position, being a quarterback, you're not trying to get hit. So
Right.
he stopped pulling it and was just giving it to the running back. So now all the front four, the front had to play is just play the run. They didn't have to worry about RG pulling it back and then trying to throw it or run with it because Cincinnati kept sending someone. Their
Yeah.
job was to go get the quarterback, like force him to give up the ball. Treat him as a running back is what they were trying to do.
Yeah. The tough part about that
Mm-hmm.
is they do a good job of in basketball we call it ghost, like
Okay.
a ghost screen.
Okay.
Well, it's the equivalent of a tight end coming over to be the
Mm-hmm.
kick out guy
Okay.
on that
Yeah.
defensive end
Yeah.
sometimes, and then sometimes he just bypasses him, and look like he's getting ready to kick him out and bypass him, and that's when the quarterback keeps it, and now you have an extra blocker for the quarterback. But what some teams do when they have that is just hit the tight end, uh,
Okay.
regardless if he's um, coming to block him or not. But if there's a read, the backside hole is open if he
Mm-hmm.
just hits the tight end. So it puts the defense at a
Stress.
disadvantage,
They stress.
that defensive end, because you never know when it's going to happen. And then sometimes, with that, really you're trying to get 1 or 2 yards because the whole thought process and mentality is
Okay.
if I can get them to know that I can keep this ball, even though I may get 1 or 2 yards,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to hold them a little bit longer, and now I can hand it off. And so sometimes you may not get the big gain that you want,
Mm-hmm.
but to be able to just give the in their back of their minds that I can hold this backside in or linebacker, whomever it is
Right.
responsible for me,
Mm-hmm.
if I can get them to hold, now the cutback is going to be open. If we can
Correct.
get that cut
Yes.
off,
The
and so
cutback or the
that
throw behind the linebacker because you
100%.
you froze them. That is it. My my X factor of this game before I let you go is actually number 14. Um I think it's Gainwell. I can't think his name.
Gainwell,
Yeah,
yeah, Gainwell. He's actually from Memphis.
Memphis. Yeah, that's right. Played in Memphis. Because
Played with
I'm
Coach Norville.
because I see they hit you with body blows with AJ Brown. Boom, boom, boom. Then you may be looking over the top for Smith, right? And then like you said, you have Goddard, and then of course Gainwell always draws the least likely defender in the backfield, and he has tremendous speed as well. So I'm looking if we start to see him making a couple of splash plays, I think it's going for Kansas City's defense. It's going to be a long night because, like you said, what they have offensively, Kansas City, I don't think is the only way I see a blowout. Mahomes have to not play.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, blowout. The only blowouts you probably see is if there's a bunch of turnovers and those types of things. I mean, stuff that you can't. I mean, can't forecast
Right.
because you don't know. But Gainwell, I didn't think about. I know he was one of the running backs, but they also have Sanders, which is the other running back.
Center.
But those guys do a great job in the passing game as well to help
Okay.
get the linebackers,
Mm-hmm.
up, which also helps with throwing behind the linebackers when you have good receiving running backs. Those are invaluable pieces that a lot of times go unnoticed. You think your running backs are just there to run the football, but if you got one that or two that can actually catch it as
Right.
well in the passing game, it
Mm-hmm.
makes a huge difference when you have those types of guys catching the football. Because you can put them up against linebackers that normally, they may be good in
Sure.
space, but they're not that good to be able to cover, running backs. And Jalen Hurts did an amazing job in the championship game of giving them opportunities. Give them the ball, and
Yeah.
then they were able to get some first downs and keep the drives going. That's another way to keep people honest. And now, once you drop back as a quarterback and you have mobility,
Mm-hmm.
that opens it up for you to be able to go get a first down because they have to defend, everybody, not just one or two guys, but they got to defend the running back. They got to defend the wide receivers. They got to defend the tight ends. And now, if you get a lane as a quarterback, you're looking to try to exploit it and get
Okay.
up out of there. And that's why I'm just a big proponent for having a mobile quarterback
Gotcha.
because you don't always if you don't if he's not mobile, then it's tough. It's tough to get those third and eights, third and sevens,
Right.
because if nobody's open,
What do you do if you can't
yeah, what do
run?
you do
What do you
if you
do?
can't run? And so I've seen numerous guys who are mobile
Mm-hmm.
where third and seven, nobody's there. They're doing is trying to find a lane, hit it. All we trying to do is move the chains.
Move the
And
chains.
so yes, just move the chains so we can keep playing. And those are important things. And Mahomes did a great job last week. He was gimpy, but when he needed to get a first down at the
He got
end,
it. He got
he,
it.
he get, he's able to get it. And so that's what he does. He's so smart that I'm not going to be out here running the whole game,
Nah.
but when I need it,
But when I need it,
I'm
it's
gonna
gonna
go
be there.
right.
Uh, I appreciate you coming on the show, man, and giving us some insight. I wanted to make sure I had you on because, so much of the time we equate you, yes, Florida State, but then, you had a illustrious NBA career. And I always want to make sure I come back and pick your brain regarding this big game. I do have one NBA question for you while I got you. And it's just a thought on a particular player. What are your thoughts on a guy like a Zion Williams? That that size, that bounce, that hang time. When I say hang time, I don't think people saw the clip when he was at Duke when he actually took off from the free throw line. I was like, "Oh,
Right.
wait a minute! I ain't never seen nothing like that. That size. What are your thoughts on a guy like Zion?"
Of course, he has all the talent that you want and
Mm-hmm.
need
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to just how explosive he is. He's definitely a winner because teams he's been on, have won. And right now, the Pelicans are missing his services because he's injured.
Right.
That is his bugaboo. His weight has been something that he's had to work through.
Mm-hmm.
And normally that is what happens when you're, not in the best shape,
Mm-hmm.
or you're overweight or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case may be, you
Right.
stay injured.
Okay.
And so, yes, he's explosive. Yes, he's a winner.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he has great potential, but until he can figure out how to stay healthy,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to struggle.
Does
And
something like the last injury, that hamstring, is that a tribute? Because I was confused. Is that a tribute to weight, or is that just
yeah,
something that?
it attributes to being out of shape.
Okay, okay,
And not saying that he's out of shape, but it does have a lot to do, with it.
okay.
Because I mean, there's other people who have hamstring issues and
Hmm.
they're in great shape. But hamstrings are something that you can't push.
Right.
Um, and so I just know he's been injured for most of the season this year. Coming back off of an injury last year.
Yeah.
And so it's been one of those things. Very similar to Steph Curry. You know, when Steph Curry was
Oh yeah, when he first
younger,
came in, yeah, the
he
ankles.
had the
Mm-hmm.
ankle injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, well, if he can't get that under control, then he's going to, not be able to. And he was able to, get that under control where, he's changed his diet, changed his workout routine, he got
Mm-hmm.
stronger. And of course, he's who he is
Steph
today,
Curry, yeah, he's Steph
you know,
Curry.
and he's playing games. He's and the ankle injury was in the past, way in the past. And so
Right,
he was able to overcome that by making some changes to,
gotcha.
the way he was going about his approach or what have you, just for healing purposes as
Mm.
well,
Okay,
and it's not, but you're going to be injured. I mean, that you're an athlete, you're going to have injuries. I mean, there's
no way to get around that.
even, no, even guys that play a long time, they have injuries, but they continue to play, you know.
Right.
Um, and so it's just, he's going to need to get to a point where
Mm-hmm.
he takes care of his body so he can, perform at a high level.
Gotcha. Well, once again, Charlie, man, I thank you for coming on the show, man, and blessing us with your presence and your insight on the big game. And continue much success in everything that you do, man. Continue to stay being a man of God that you are, because I follow Christ myself, man. So that's why I was
Oh,
glad to
good.
see the shirt that you have on. So continue to stay safe and stay blessed, man. And we love you.
All right. Thanks, Otis. I appreciate you having me on.
Good night.